Right, welcome back to the £30 billion podcast that me and Jane have just created off air. Welcome, Jane. You've been missed.
Oh, thank you. I missed everybody too, but it was
I've been
nice to
chatting
have a
to
break.
myself for a couple of weeks. It's been rubbish. No, it's been good. I've still enjoyed it. It's been great, but it's nice to have you back and we can have a proper conversation and ingest talking about £30 billion stuff. We were just talking about like the difference between people. Think of the most successful person you know of that's made a success of their business compared to, well, not compared to anyone, just think of them. And maybe the difference between like the mindsets of people not being scared to have a go compared to someone who's like, oh, shall I or shan't I? And we're going to actually focus on timing today. So it kind of like feeds us into when's a good time to start anything or create something new. But before we do that, Jane, where did you go? Tell us about your holiday. What happened?
Oh, we had a little bit of a tour. We drove down from Amsterdam to Slovenia, which was epic. It was absolutely fantastic, and it was just lovely to have a bit of space. Just to read books. I think I spoke to you about this earlier. Just have a bit of space and reevaluate. And I feel like I've come back and just feel so much more aligned and more calm and centered about what's about to happen with our trip to China, about the future of the business going into the new academic year. Like it's really exciting. I think I left feeling quite frantic, but it was really nice just to have a rest. So in that sense, I was worried about going away because there was so much going on at the time, but the timing was absolutely perfect because actually it made me take a step back and think, right, we've got this, and these are the things that just allowed me a bit of clarity. So in terms of timing, it may not have seemed like the perfect time, but it absolutely was.
It's a challenge, isn't it? Like running your business and being a sole trader because you don't get like a fixed time where you go, I can go off now. Like, and obviously a lot of us were so used to having that time prescribed to us because you'd get summer holidays or and half terms and things. And I know I've struggled with this a lot. Like actually going, oh, I'm allowed to take time off somewhere or not. I've not put the plan in place to make it really happen. So I'm taking inspiration from that as well. So I hope others do. And timing is like the theme of the whole session. So to hear that you talk about it in that way is really, yeah, amazing. So when you say you have sort of time to refresh, let's go a bit deeper because I think lots of people would like, what does that really mean? Because we spoke quite a lot this morning about just general stuff, but in particular, like what that meant for you. Because we're quite similar in that we'll read the similar books and listen to similar podcasts, the same sort of people with like values, shared values with ourselves. So when you have that time and space, what are you investing that time in?
I was investing it in relaxing as much as I could, to be totally honest, switching off. I posted a little bit on social media, but everything was scheduled in advance apart from the stories that I put up. But it was just nice not to be tied to my phone. I really like that. Just having a bit of kind of a disconnection. Spending time with family was really lovely. The mum guilt had hit really hard in the run up to the holiday because even though the summer holidays have begun, I was working a lot of hours just to make sure that I could have time away, which seems a bit a bit counterintuitive, but it was lovely just to reconnect and just have some space outside of the business. I read books, and that weird thing happened where I took a real stack of books with me and thought that they were all different, but actually they all had a real similar thread to it in terms of energy, and just kind of like just relaxing and surrendering into whatever kind of is meant to be for you. So it was really interesting in that sense. I've come back with a love of the woo, even more. But yeah, I felt it was really, really calm, and just that time just to refresh was really important. Did you manage to have much of a break? Because you were really busy, weren't you?
Yeah, it's busy time. So this is like my equivalent of that crazy GCSE window. Like so the Kent test happens in about a week's time, just over a week's time. So it gets really busy. But in the same breath, like there's a cut-off point, and then new people should be coming on board the week after. But I've not had a lot of energy to throw at that, and I've not been as organized as what I usually am. So it's suffering the other side of getting new people in. So it's like which is absolutely fine because it will just pick up. And again, we're going to use this word like surrender a lot, I think. So let's make sure people are aware of that. So I'm kind of surrendering to that right now. It's fired me up to like make sure, I need to be posting again. I need to make sure there's enough going out there so I can get enough coming back in. And then there's obviously word of mouth, which will kick in, I think, after the next sort of week or so. But there's been so much going on over summer, like with launch of the 12-week course. There's been like chatting to people and new things happening, like meetups around the country, like which just seems insane. Like considering like a year ago, lots of these things hadn't even happened yet. Like even like some of the courses. Had your course happened
My
last year?
course was the first time it was November 2023. So it was
So
just after, yeah, so it's
that's
not a
right.
year yet.
Because we were at the conference talking about and planning the launch, weren't we? That was about this. Was that this time last year?
Yeah, it was September, wasn't it?
Wow.
Yeah,
So since then, I mean, that seems ages ago now,
yeah.
doesn't it? If you think about like the growth of everything. Anyway, so we're talking about all of these things and then timing and energy, and let's open up the idea of being woo, a bit more woo. I'm definitely up for that. Um, Timing in general. So when I don't know why it's been something rattling around my head for a little while, thinking this is something that we should definitely talk about. And I saved this one for us because I know that you'd have plenty to add. And the idea of having like the idea of timing in business is kind of age old. Like, oh, we have to get things done at the right time, or we have to launch it at the right time, or start our business in the right time. Just generally, I'm not sure that I agree that there is a right time for anything. And I always say, if someone asks me a question like, when should I advertise? I'm like, yesterday, like, because that's the point. But starting a business might be slightly different. And there are other things that we need to think about. And there are genuine things from a timing perspective where you might say, yeah, still start, but there might be things in your life that means it won't go as fast. And it's okay. And it's probably likely to be happening for a really good reason. So let's dig into those sorts of things. So tell us a little bit about what you think about timing in general, Jane. Like let's be like quite narrow on this. So let's say starting or beginning your business, like with timing. What springs to mind? What are the challenges?
I think well we talked about this just before when we were planning what we were going to talk about, and I inadvertently like struck gold when I started because I started in April, and the only reason why I started in April is because that's when my maternity leave ran out.
Mm,
So I thought, right, well, I've got to do something or it's starting to get a job. Now that wasn't really planned for, but you say April, secondary specialist. I was inundated like very, very quickly and thought, oh right, okay, this is great. But at the same time, I still had a baby who was 9 months old by that point. So I only had three students a week, and that was enough for that time,
mm.
for that kind of that time in my life. So I think in terms of challenges, in some ways, I love, I absolutely adore the community that we have, but I was a lone ranger, like completely. 10 years ago, I was completely isolated, I was completely alone, and that was not a good thing. But I suppose one of the benefits was that I didn't realize how big tuition could be. If that makes sense, maybe I would have felt a little bit of pressure to make it bigger than it needed to be at that point in my life. So in that sense, I think one of the challenges is almost like staying in your own lane and realizing that, what is right for you at that point in your life. I think I would have definitely known my personality. I would have absolutely got carried away and kind of wanted 10, 15 students a week, just because I knew that it was possible. But at that point, at that time in my life, those three students a week were absolutely perfect for me. I don't know, what do you think the challenges are in
I,
terms of timing?
I agree that with that. hold on, when you started on your own, like your perception of tuition is I just need to do this little bit and that, and then I'm okay. I think one of the challenges coming into like a space like grow your tutoring business, you might look at the people who are offering you advice in a really lovely way, because that's what the community is, but then look at what they're doing in their business and go, oh, right, okay, so that's what I can emulate. And so you start having like this, putting this unnecessary pressure on to grow quicker than what your life currently allows or should allow. And so to give a little bit more clarity, like when we were talking about like good times to start versus bad times, I don't necessarily believe there's a good or bad. I don't think that exists, but being realistic with where you are at in your life is worthwhile just sitting down and having a really good think about. Because if you've got children currently in primary school, then tuition is definitely still doable. I don't want to put anybody off. Of course it is, and you can earn really good money and have a really good service. But if you didn't have children in primary school, there's no reason why you couldn't look at your business and go, oh, actually, I could look at the international market. I can look at evenings. I can do everything. So I'm not that that's a good idea either, but you can have a look at the pros and cons. But whereas if there might be things in your life where you go, actually, this is not the time to grow everything. What I need to do is have my 3 students or my 3 evenings where I can really commit to it and make that work. And then as things progress with your life and it moves forward, things change and you can add to it or take away depending on what happens. So I think timing has a different meaning in that sense, like the timing of where you are in your life, not just like the time of year or things like that, which is kind of what you're saying. Because how old's your youngest now?
She's 8, but I think the evolution thing that you just touched on is really, really important because I've been tutoring for 10 and a half years now, and my business has evolved dramatically. So I started off with those 3 students in the library, and then it grew a little bit when I realised that I wasn't going to go back to the classroom. I maybe had about 5 or 6 students on an evening where I'd drive around to people's houses 2 nights a week. But then when my children started school, that was when the international market really, really supported me in growing a business. And now, I have my own team. It is that evolution, but also knowing when the time is right. Because if I'd if I'd started out in that way, then I think I would have just been completely overwhelmed, and it was definitely not the right thing for me. So mine's been a real slow burn. But I feel like now that my children are older, I'm in a place where I can grow, where I can, take a bit more time to grow the business, and whether that's going on business trips abroad or investing time and energy into other things. I'm definitely at that point now where I do have that capacity. So timing in terms of like your life is really important, I think. Like, absolutely, because your children are a little bit older, aren't they?
Yeah, my youngest is 12.
Mhm.
And I think back when they were, say, similar age to your youngest, sort of 8, like it was harder. Like, so I would have started by then, as it was trickier because there were other things in the mix. So I knew I could be around for school drop off, like pick up and drop off. So I made sure that I could, but that was at a sacrifice of a tuition session, like in the evening, and that's okay. Or it's starting slightly later. I wouldn't get in my car because I was still driving around then. So there's like there are just things where you go, okay, it could be like this, but my time of life means it can't be. That's okay, right? So we just kind of accept that kind of time is what it is, and then we make a plan later on if we really want to. Like if we added 8 years, I don't really like doing this, but if we added 8 years to where we are right now, now your youngest is 16, what does it look like? It's going to be significantly different from a time perspective as being a parent. Doesn't get easier, by the way, but I'm just saying that it's different, right? It's just different. I'll leave it there. I'll let other people fill in the blanks of if you've got older children. I've got my eldest is 22, so I've got there's a range. I heard something about starting and beginning up. I heard something yesterday, which was again like a weird, because there's when you start thinking about something in your mind, you start like hearing things or connecting with things that are related to it. So I was listening to a podcast, and there was a statement in there which I really loved, which was people wait for the perfect time, or they start looking for the perfect time to start to do something. So in this case, let's use business, start their business. But most of us miss the point that the perfect time is starting the business. It's not about the time of year or the time of life. It's about actually just surrendering yourself to the idea that it's never going to be perfect. And you want to start developing these skills as quickly as possible, whether that is onboarding one client, your first client, and only having the first client for the first few months, or whether it's just slowly, gradually having 3, 4, 5 new people. And then it's like you're just teaching yourself just very slowly and gently, like how the processes work and what works and what doesn't. And I mean, look, does the perfect time exist? I mean, both of us feel similar on this. Like, we often say, like, we're winging it. Like, we go, right, this is a good idea, or that's a bad idea, or what do you think, Jane? What do you think, Rich? And then we kind of like bang about these ideas a little bit before we kind of get to a ground. We go, well, this is probably the thing for now. Let's focus on that. Or I know this is like, because we've already got like tuition businesses that are kind of okay, like successful, they're doing well. So a lot of this is like new things, new ideas. So it has the same kind of essence around it. Like, is it going to work? Should we do it in November? Should we do it in June? These are things that we talk about a lot, and we've got experience of that, haven't we? Like with your International Tutors Who Thrive course.
Yeah, like when we were planning it out, that we thought, the way that it coordinated with the Tutors Who Thrive course, it was like November was a good time. And then it was the doubt of, oh gosh, but that's close to Christmas. Is anybody going to invest? Is it too close to Christmas? But we did it, and we had 20 sign-ups, didn't we? And it was a really amazing experience. People got a lot out of the course, but actually November probably wasn't the right time to do it, because it ran too close to Christmas in the end. I think we started at the end of November, didn't we? And it was a 4-week course at that point. So I think we finished the week before Christmas week. And whilst everybody was so admirable and they turned up and they did the work, it probably wasn't the best time. I don't think that it was a failure though, because we still had, like, we helped a lot of tutors, we supported 20 tutors in that cohort, but we learned loads too. Like, we learned so much from that. And then that could then feed into the next course, which it ran in April, didn't it? It was it was April time. So it was, it's all a learning experience. I think you're absolutely right. Like, it is just about starting. And I know I talk about Jen Gottlieb a lot, but she's on my radar a lot at the moment. And just the sound bites that she has. I mean, she was an incredible speaker, but just certain quotes that she had, and it was her story about beginning, and it was like, don't prepare, begin. And sometimes you have just got to take that plunge, whether that is launching a new product, or, whether that is taking the massive step of stepping away from the classroom to build a tuition business. It's all a massive kind of leap of faith, whatever stage you're at, really. But sometimes the value isn't in the service working and coming off in the way that you want it or expect it to. A lot of the time, the value is in the learning experience, being on that journey, so that you can then kind of expand or scale or improve what you have to offer in that first case. I don't know. It's the evolution. Like, I always go back to this when I talk to tutors. Like, you have to see your tuition business as an evolving, as an evolving thing, not just something that's very static. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, because it changes all the time.
Yeah.
Like, whatever we do, there's always an element that changes, whether that's because of feedback or, I don't know, we haven't gone through this, it's still quite new yet, but even like the economic environment, when that changes, there's always something to kind of be aware of. And if we're not, we always want to be proactive, but there's also an element of looking at what you've done previously and taking it forward and changing it slightly just from your own reflection, even before like the feedback happens. You know, there's always something, whether that's like we've done challenges, and that's been something that's quite new for us this year. Like if we think about even what we got out of that in terms of, we understand it a little bit more. We understand what that process needs to be like and feel like for people. We understand that the people coming into the challenge are getting certain amount of value from it, and then it gives us always something more to work with. I think that there's an element where whatever we talk about, whether it's timing, whenever we're timing in this instance, but anything where we talk about actually putting ourselves out there, taking that vulnerable risk, we have to weave in resilience and being mindful that just because something didn't work first time around, it doesn't make it a bad idea. And this does weave into timing as well, because like we can take your international tutors who thrive and say, well, November probably wasn't the best time to do it, but it was better than not doing it.
Yeah.
And then we use that information to then make the next one even better and look at the timing. And I think it doesn't matter what month of the year that we would choose, there would always be a reason not to do it in that month. We would find the reason. So January, we go, oh, it's a new year, people won't buy. February, it's quite close to like the half term. It's still quite close to the new year. Probably won't. March, we have the Easter break, and then April, it's like, oh, we've just had 2 weeks at Easter. We're kind of looking, it's GCSE time. Parents, that's all they're interested in. Then like we were saying about if starting a new tuition business in April, which is when you did yours, like, thank you very much, because that's like, bosh, have 1,000 clients straight away, like, because it's everything's so close, it's so pressurized. But if you was on the outside looking in and you was a little bit like wary about starting and you did a bit of research, you'd go, oh my gosh, there's so many tutors, because everybody's advertising, because everybody knows this is like the time to really push, particularly group sessions. So whatever, and we could go through the whole year like that, there will always be a reason not to do it. And therefore, well, what happens? We just don't do it. Like, and then you go, I didn't do it, so it means I don't really want to do it. And that's not, it's just this horrible cycle. Drew Povey spoke about it, didn't he? Like this whole, like what starts in our mind, what spiral do you want to go to? Do you want to do that downward spiral that's really negative? Or do you want to flip it around and go, actually, there's something here. You can change your messaging and we can go up the spiral instead. There's a fable that I know, which I'd like to share with people, and it kind of links to resilience maybe more than timing. But I think if we take the idea of time and timing from a true sense, it's almost comes from experience as well. And it's a story of a village, really, and a small village, and it focuses on a dad and his son, and the dad buys his son a horse, and the village go, oh, that's amazing, brilliant. And the wise old man of the village says, we'll see. And a few days after having the horse, the lad falls off, breaks his leg. And the village go to the old man and go, oh, he fell off, he's broke his leg. Oh, it's really bad, you were right. And the old man says, we'll see. And their country where they live goes to war, and the army rolls through the village, and they take all the young lads off to war, but he couldn't go. The lad who broke his leg couldn't go because he can't. And they go to the old man and go, oh, you were right. And he says, oh, we'll see. And it keeps going on like this, because we don't know until after we've tried something whether something is going to be good or bad. Therefore, whatever we do, we can't categorize it like that. We can take the words good or bad off the table and just go, we'll see, we'll find out. And we were talking about China earlier on. It's kind of like, that's what I'm surrendering to, going to China, because I'm not set up to offer international tuition yet. So I don't know,
isn't it? It's yet. Yeah.
I don't know whether it's something. I'd love to be able to find connections and just see. And in terms of like the overall investment, it's a bit of a, well, we'll see investment. Like it's still quite significant. And I don't want to take that away, because I know there'll be some people going, I wish I could do that. And that's like, I always bear that in mind. But from a business investment, it's not too bad. And actually it's not even really a punt, really. It's more than that, because we're really going there with those intentions to make those connections, to see if we can make it work. But there's huge potential in it. So it's worth it. But I'm going there with we'll see.
Yes.
And I'm going to take that energy forward and I'm going to be really positive, because the opposite would be, oh, I don't know if this is going to work or not. Trust me, those thoughts do creep in, and they have crept in a lot. But it's like, actually, I'm going to surrender to the we'll see. And I'm going to go at it with everything I can. It's going to be that positive thinking person that I always try to be. And yeah, we'll see.
I think you see that a lot in tutors that work with us as well, because if you've made the investment with that commitment, and you have a real kind of focus, it is on the thing that you want to get, whether that's setting up groups in your business or whether that's attracting international clients. You can really tell the people that are kind of really focused and invested, not just financially in the process, but throwing their whole self into everything that you can offer them. And generally the results do follow, is what I'm learning. Like, it is really important to have that mindset of kind of making things work, and seeing any barriers as opportunities, to overcome, to learn. And it is all part of the journey, because there isn't ever going to be a perfect time for anything. Life always throws up some kind of curveball, whether that's, in your personal life, in your business life. Like, the whole journey of life, this is where these books are going to come into play, is about kind of living through that, not waiting for the perfect time where you have enough, time to invest in something, or kind of the headspace to do it. Sometimes you just have to take the leap and do it, even if you feel like you're not ready for it. I do think that that's definitely something that I've taken away over the last few weeks. Just sometimes you just have to do it, whether or not you kind of feel like it's something that you would do usually, or just stepping out of your comfort zone is super important.
I think
I'm
as
still in
well,
holiday mode though, so I'm not sure if that
you're still inside those books, which is a good place to be, really. I think as well, like with the idea of time and timing, is experience matters. Like, so that we always compare, and I say that with a little bit tongue in cheek, is that I try not to, but I think people, maybe new tutors or people thinking of starting up something new, you might be doing your due diligence and going out and doing a little bit of like a SWOT analysis, and you're looking at perhaps other people in your area or maybe in the same niche as you. Just be really careful about that comparison against somebody who's been doing it for 10 years, because there is no comparison, because what they've done is they've walked the hard miles and done the hard yards. And so you shouldn't be anywhere near comparing yourself to them. It wouldn't be fair. But if you allow yourself to follow that path and go down that path yourself, in 10 years' time, someone will be looking at you in a very similar way.
Yeah.
And so time for me, and timing is kind of interweaved into that. Like, again, surrendering yourself to the fact that you're not going to know everything yet. You're going to know your subject really well. You're going to know how to move children on from A to B, whatever that may look like. But from a business perspective, there's going to be a lot of learning along the way. Like, that is what we're surrendering to, really.
And I think that leaves you space then to develop other areas. So for me, I'm quite comfortable with the rhythm of my tuition, in that it's relatively quiet at the moment because students are traveling. It was very busy over the summer period, because I know that that's a time when my students want more lessons, not less. Or even if some do drop off, generally the students will request additional lessons, so that it kind of evens out. Over February time, I get a lot more quiet because of cultural celebrations. So I think with that experience, like you're saying, you just become more comfortable with the timing of your own business, with the rhythm of your own business. And then once you have that kind of comfortable kind of understanding of your business, then you can look at other areas to develop as well. But sometimes it does take a couple of cycles just to ease into the rhythm, and things do change and it's never consistent, but you can kind of just see the patterns and the cycles that go with your tuition business. And that is the key thing, what you're saying, that actually it's all about you. Because if we're looking at tuition to create this kind of dream life for ourselves, that will look different to everybody, you know. For some people, it would be an absolute nightmare to work during the daytime because that's the time that they get and they want to kind of go to a spa or go for a walk. But for me, that works perfectly. You know, just like yourself, you've got a different kind of setup to me, but it's just what works for you at that time in your life and also for the lifestyle that you want to create as well. And tuition, I'll always be eternally grateful for tuition for allowing me to create a life that works for me and my family. Like it's been amazing.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah.
Amen. That's pretty much it. I have nothing else to add on timing, really. I think wrapping into the experience and then like what tuition can actually provide for you, whichever way you want, the way you've aptly ended it. I think that's it. Is there anything we've not spoken about that we wanted to, Jane?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it.
Okay, right. Well, let's leave it there then. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's great to have you back. Rather than me just chatting away to myself, we're going to have a proper conversation. I definitely prefer that. We'll be back next week with more. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you.